Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is a weird adventure that really focuses on the friends that we make along the way. The game is the second in the planned trilogy by Square Enix, who has taken the old PS1 Final Fantasy VII and just completely reimagined it from the ground up for newcomers. There's a lot of minigames, a lot of cutscenes, epic battles, love, bikinis, kart racing, and just this huge open world for you to get immersed in. What's going on, guys? We are finally back after a break that honestly went way too long. Really sorry for anyone that hasn't seen any of my videos in a bit. Let's just say March was a crazy life month overall. I wanted to put out the latest YouTube video review of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, a game I know everyone has already covered. A lot of people are saying that it's great, but as a heads up, I'm not going to be spoiling anything here because I believe that the journey and the destination that this game takes you on, although it can get a little long, is really worth it here. If you're new to the channel, basically I focus on reviews, previews, gaming news, general gaming content. I like anything game related, I play basically everything, and I do work full time, so I guess I'm more of an adult gamer. Help us out by hitting the subscribe button or even just liking the video. Some context for this review: Final Fantasy VII Remake is the only version that I've actually played of Final Fantasy VII. This is basically a fresh experience for me with the series. I mean, I've only played that one boy band game. I think it was Final Fantasy like 13 or 14, I'm not sure. They were in a car and it was these guys. I mean, I've played Kingdom Hearts, which kind of counts. And I have actually played the recent Final Fantasy 16, which I liked at first, but I had some issues there. You could check out the review to see that. But when we go back to Final Fantasy VII Remake, when I think that came out on the PS4, I really liked it. It was a little bit more linear than I thought it would be. And, you know, one of the complaints I had is that it kind of wraps things up very abruptly. So to start off this game, Square Enix has come out saying you don't have to play the first, and I'm gonna be honest with you all, that's a huge lie. Even the whole recap video that they give you honestly doesn't do much for me. I mean, I had to get refreshed with the game. I had to look things up again because I got a little bit confused, especially in that early initial segment. Again, I'm not going to spoil a lot here, but you do start off with this flashback sequence that defines Cloud's past with Sephiroth, as well as like his friends. This is all playable in the demo, so I mean, if you are curious about the game, you want to see what it's about, there is a demo for you to play as well. To kind of sum up the story here with a summary, again, keeping spoilers at a minimum, you're going to be following this group named Avalanche, which is a group of rebels that are fighting the evil corporation Shinra, who's basically destroying the planet for profits. Really relative stuff, right? The main character is Cloud Strife, who is an ex-soldier, hunting his old companion Sephiroth, who's a legendary soldier that's presumed dead after he basically loses his mind and wipes out a village. The game basically centers around Cloud chasing down Sephiroth. But that's not really to say that, I mean, a lot of the team does get important moments here as well. The rest of your team gets to experience the limelight. They get these side missions that help expand on them. I mean, every area you visit kind of focuses on them. Again, not spoiling a lot because you really do have to play this, get to these areas, and experience this stuff because a lot of the side character stories here are really done well. That's something that I really liked about the game, and I think it's something that's missing in a lot of RPG games. Side characters in a lot of these games are really just that, side characters. And if this game wanted to, honestly, it could just focus on Cloud the entire way and his hunt for Sephiroth, saving the planet, boring stuff, right? But I think you lose so much really good character development, the motivations. You get to grow and really like all of the characters here that you're partying with. This is something I think few games do, and I think it makes anything not related to that main quest feel like a chore in just so many other games, but not here. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'll probably talk about this later. I mean, there are some pacing issues, some story things that I don't think work out as well, but there's just so much good stuff done here when it comes to character development to where, honestly, you can't talk about the story of the game without referencing the party system, how important each person is to this party. And I think that's something that's forgotten in Final Fantasy 16, the previous game that just came out, I think, last year. And you really feel that hole here when you're playing this game. Not just in the combat. I mean, the combat here is different, but in cutscenes, the side missions, the mini games, I think this whole part of the story is really, really done well, and it's what I like the most about the game. The storyline consists of these main missions that aren't really locking you into finishing them. The game does warn you when you get to this point of no return or if you can't go back to certain areas, but you can start a mission, do whatever the hell you want on the side, and just do it in your free time. You're going to have some linear segments that do break up the pace a little bit of the freedom. And I think what's really cool about that is the party does get split up and you're forced to use other members. So don't get used to who you're using. You are going to have your mains, but you're going to get used to kind of using everybody. You get to see how combat works with them. This whole thing, I mean, breaks up the pace, where if you were just locked to Cloud, I could definitely see the game and the combat becoming really repetitive. This takes me to the combat system. If you've seen my Final Fantasy 16 review, you'll know that I just really didn't like the combat in that game. It got very repetitive, it got boring. You do just play as one character the entire time, and there's not much variation there besides whatever powers you equip. This game, on the other hand, I think nails the feeling of basically playing a turn-based game that's been kind of adapted to this awesome, really real-time action game. Think mix of like Devil May Cry with being able to select certain moves to use. You can switch between characters, block, counter, fill your ATB bar with like basic attacks, cast spells, use special moves, you fill up a limit break, you're able to even summon literal gods to help you. And they've added these like new synergy moves and attacks. There's just so much going on when it comes to the combat system. At first, I'm going to be honest, it's really, really easy to lose track. It does feel overwhelming. It is a little difficult at first. But once you get it, seriously, honestly, once you get it, it works so well. Every enemy has this type weakness that you can assess and identify. You can use things to pressure them, staggering them, and just letting you completely do a ton of damage to them. The combat is super fast paced. You can hit the X button and stop combat to cast whatever moves you want to use, and that helps slow it down so that you can, think while you're doing all of this. And on top of that, every character has a move on the triangle button. Cloud, for example, hits his prime mode where he's hitting slower, but he does more damage. Barrett's sending out like 5 slugs with overcharge. Tifa has one that's really in depth. I mean, she has 3 different levels to her ability if she's using unbridled strength. Again, a lot of depth here. Honestly, a lot of depth that I haven't even fully figured out. And I mean, I played like maybe 80 hours into this entire game. Speaking of just my playthrough, I want to just address this one right away. The game is fucking long, seriously. Long to a point where it really, really might bother you. I'm going to be completely honest here. At times, I did start to feel a little bit of burnout. It's a controversial take, I think, for a lot of people that, if you're a fan of this type of game, you're probably not going to agree with me, and I think that's fine. If you're a Japanese RPG player who spent like 150 hours playing Persona 5, I mean, this isn't going to bother you at all. But, a lot of those games are 100 plus hours. For me, I could definitely have spent 100 hours if I did absolutely everything in those last 3 chapters. So the reason this review also took forever is because I was seriously, for the first time in my life, 100%ing every area till about, I think, chapter 11. I mean, there's a lot to do in these areas, and it flew by, it felt great, but I do want to break all this stuff down for you. First, we have the side missions. There really aren't that many per zone. I mean, these bring up your relationship levels with your party. You get some good items. I mean, you get experience. They're okay, in my opinion. I mean, there's nothing there that's too crazy. They do seem like the typical JRPG side missions that I guess may or may not be a good thing, depending on who's playing. I honestly didn't mind most. They were pretty fast. They didn't take up too much time. Only a few really got on my nerves, and I'll be honest, that chicken mission, whoever the hell designed it, seriously, you suck. I hate that mission so much. But you could basically just skip all of these missions if you don't like them, or if you do get burnt out, so that is a good thing. Next, I mean, you can't talk about side content without really talking about Chadley, who's basically the AI little boy. I mean, he's back from the original game, or remake, and is basically the pillar. He's what's holding up all of the side content in this game. You're doing research for the planet with these little missions for him. You unlock VR battles, you get more materia, you're able to unlock new summons. He is skippable too, but I'm going to be honest, early on, take it from me, it's really, really helpful to do these. Chadley has these life springs that take you to locations where this owl shows up, kind of like Ghost of Tsushima style. And it basically takes you to a life spring where you're getting these materials. You can pick these up, craft new gear and potions. It's really helpful, especially for the gear. You're also, going to these towers, and typical towers in a video game. You unlock them, and it gives you markers everywhere else for you to do more missions. Then you've got these summon caves, which I think are the most important. You do like a quick little short sequence, kind of like a music, XX, triangle, triangle, unlock it. Then you're able to fight a weaker version of that summon and unlock that summon to use, during like any of your battles. On top of that, there's monster hunts. Once you finish these, you get these different objectives in the VR training, and you're getting a unique boss battle in the overworld that gives you some kind of unique material. I didn't do many of those VR training things. I did some in the beginning, but kind of started skipping them. But finishing up all these monster missions didn't take too much time. And on top of that, you do get a really cool boss battle in that area. To top off all of this, you have these relic missions, which I think were really interesting. They open up to kind of like a whole new story. Definitely worth pursuing. And Queen's Blood, a card game that I am very guilty of spending way too much time playing. This one surprisingly unlocks another kind of like side story segment. I don't think you should skip the Queen's Blood card game, and I also don't think you should skip the relic missions. These are definitely worth pursuing if you have the time. But if you do skip them, you can always go back later. What I like about the content in this game is that it's all helpful. It's helping you get stronger, whether it means you level up or through the items you unlock. You're also able to really explore this whole map fully versus just going point to point, finishing off the main missions. At first, seriously, I really enjoyed 100%ing the areas, even though this is something I honestly never do in video games. I didn't get burnt out till almost the end, and I'm gonna be honest here, guys. The only reason I got burnt out is because I'm reviewing the game, and I think if you're a casual gamer, if you're not someone that's trying to do this for any other purpose, there's so much content here for you to enjoy. But if you're someone like me who's got a deadline and is like, I really need to get this out, I need to drop a video, and then Dragon's Dogma 2 looks awesome, I really want to play this. Shit, my friends are playing Helldivers. Oh, there's a new update or pass, I really want to play that. The length will kind of bother you, but I think most people are just going to be in the other boat, right? Where you get to appreciate this game fully, really enjoy the content. Whenever you get burnt out, skip ahead or play a different game. And, even if it does get a little repetitive by the end, you're going to appreciate how much you get here for that $70 price tag. Another, I guess, controversy here is the whole minigame simulation critique that people are doing. The game has minigames for almost literally everything. You get a mount in an area, minigame. Optional, but essential if you want to explore the area. Moogles, selling spell books and selling things to you that, overall, looking back, it's not really that important, but annoying minigame. The Gold Saucer area, basically an amusement park filled with minigames. You've got kart racing, that's kind of like a Mario Kart ripoff. A frog hopping minigame, that's basically Fall Guys. Tower defense style board game. It's crazy how many games that they've crammed into this game. Are all of these fun mini games? Let's be real here. No. A lot are pretty janky. Some can get annoying. Do you need to do these games to enjoy Final Fantasy VII? Also, no. Unless you want those rewards, and if you're like me who was really going completionist mode, I wanted to see what everything had to offer. I thought, at least there's fun charm in the games. I think it gives you a nice break from the combat, and it makes it to where it's not as repetitive of a game. But I'm going to be honest here, there's a segment at the end where I started skipping them because I was nearing the end, I could see the light, and again, something I'm going to discuss later, the pacing felt off, but that's something we'll talk about later. I don't think the mini games are a bad thing in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth at all. I think if you look at this, Square Enix put a lot of love and care into this game. It's a lot on just every level, right? It's so much when it comes to graphics, so much when it comes to the acting, the voice, the music, the mini games. There's just a lot of care here. And honestly, if you play a few of them and hate them, don't worry. You're not forced into these. There is a box throwing bullshit game that you're forced into. There's an island segment, which I think was also forced, but you don't have to complete all of the mini games in the game. There are just a few that are required in the story, but I will say, it is a bummer that the ones that are required, if I had to rank them, the ones required were the worst ones in the game. Next up is graphics and music. Graphics, despite whatever bullshit was going around on Twitter, all these screenshots that people had, I think they're great. I think the colors are nice, vibrant. The character faces are great. I mean, it reminds me of the whole Advent Children movie just come to life here. Final Fantasy, in my opinion, has always looked badass. I've always wanted to play it. I always thought it looked really cool. I love the art style. And what happens here is it gets brought to life. Something like the locations here too, I think they're really designed well. Every location feels unique, different. And I mean, the game is about preserving a planet against an evil corpo that's just fucking it up. It really accomplishes that and shows you the beauty of this planet. There's a couple different modes for you to play on. I did play this one on graphics mode or whatever that mode is because honestly, guys, it looked good. The frame drop to 30 was not that serious for me. It didn't bother me at all. I did try performance mode, and I mean, the graphics there take a hit. And if you ask me, I mean, the game just looks way too nice for me to give it a hit at all. Cutscenes are also just seriously badass, and I mean, as an anime fan, I enjoyed watching the action, the limit breaks, those synergy moves. All of it is just so visually nice to look at. The music in the game is just really, really good. I think a lot of the songs are basically remastered or new versions from the original game, but I mean, they're catchy, they're memorable. Every song suits the location very well. I did run into an issue though, like some kind of audio issue, where the music gets way too loud while people were talking. You're gonna have to lower that music setting, at least I did, and it helped, but it didn't fix it completely. I mean, something there is off with mixing. I'm not sure if it got patched or I just kind of stopped noticing it by the end. Despite all of the good stuff I'm saying, there are things that I did dislike about the game, and there are things that I think the game could have done better. Again, forced minigames during the story, they really felt like a chore. The design sucked, and I think stuff like that can really turn people off on this game. And it's otherwise just a really, really good game. So I really hope people don't get turned off by like throwing boxes. It's terrible, but just keep going, please. Don't get me wrong, I mean, I played every minigame that's in this game, and a lot of the optional ones just were designed a lot better. They were more fun than, I mean, those forced ones that they have you do in the story. On top of that, I mean, the game, at least to me, still doesn't make a lot of sense story-wise. I mean, I don't need it, I guess, spelled out to me. I paid attention to all the scenes. I got an understanding of kind of what's going on. I have an idea. But the game doesn't do a very good job explaining, and it really wants you to kind of like guess and infer these things. It looks like, or at least it feels like, it's saving just a lot for that third game, but it is one of those games that's going to leave you with just a lot of questions. One of the last things I want to touch on, and I talked about this earlier in the review, is the pacing. It felt like we were taking our sweet time in every location, which was great. I mean, you learn about the party, the land, the people that were affected by the corporation. Then you get to a certain point in the story where it felt like it was just like a race to the end. And honestly, then they even threw in some filler content. I can't go into depth here because, again, it's spoilers, but the game picks up the pace, then randomly decides to slow it down, then picks it right back up and ends. Felt a little jarring, and I mean, I know earlier I said that it felt like it kind of dragged a bit, but that's just because, I mean, as you get towards the end, you've got that filler there that really distracts from that whole sense of urgency you have when it comes to the main story. Overall, though, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is, in my opinion, a true testament to what a JRPG should be. There's so much content, so many different systems, quirky minigames, a focus on the side characters and friendship. It's just so much to go through. And I mean, this is coming at a time where we spend $70 for shit levels of content. This game proves that with enough care, developers can release something that's really good for old fans and for new fans like myself. My rating for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is a solid 9 out of 10. I think this is one of the best PS5 games that I've played this generation. I think it's an amazing follow-up to Final Fantasy VII Remake, and I think this game is definitely worth going out and buying. If you made it this far, I appreciate the support. Let me know what you thought of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Did the minigames really bother you as much as I've been hearing from people? Was the game just way too long? Drop a comment. I want to know everyone's thoughts. I'll see you all in the next one. Thanks for stopping by.